Hello you guys, welcome back. I'm actually very excited to film this video because it's been really hard for me to just like pick up books sometimes. I don't know why. For the last few months, it's been more difficult for me to just like, when I have 20 minutes or 5 minutes even to pick up and read. And I feel like I used to be really good at that. And on top of it, I feel like now that I've been commuting more often, it's been harder for me to, I don't know, just take time after work to want to sit down and read and like use my brain after the long commutes. So I wanted to film this video. My goal is for the next week, starting today, to read 3 hours a day every single day. And I think that that's going to be harder than it feels because, for example, today I did go in office and it's already almost 4:30 and I haven't read a single page. So normally on a day like today, it's that much easier to just like get home, walk pee, turn on the TV and just do whatever for the rest of the night or hang out with Ryan or whatever it may be. But I want to really try to commit, and I can still do things like hang out with Ryan while he does something like play video games and then I can read or something like that. And I really feel like the reality is I only have those really hard time constraints on days that I go in office, and every other day I can read a lot in the mornings. So it's going to be a mix of me waking up a little bit earlier, me maybe reading a little bit when I come home from work. But I have 2 books that I'm currently in the middle of. You guys have probably seen these in a past reading video, but I'm currently reading Just Friends by Haley Pham and Within Arm's Reach by Ann Napolitano. I'm about 50% of the way through both of these and I'm really enjoying them both. This one is a second chance romance and this one is more of like a character study on this family dynamic starting with an unexpected pregnancy. I think they're both fantastic. I've been enjoying reading them both. I don't know either of them like if they're 5 stars for me quite yet, but I am only 50% of the way through. I want to get our timer started and get to some reading. I think for right now I'm going to pick up Just Friends. This one was a little harder for me to get into only because of the writing style and how fluffy and like flowery. I keep saying fluffy, but I think I mean flowery. But anyway, how flowery the writing was. And now that I'm in it, I think it's been a lot faster to read. So I'm excited to pick this one up. This one was holding my interest for more time, but I feel like nothing is really happening with this one. So I think these are both going to be solid books for me, at least 3 stars, if not 4, but it all depends on how they end or how the pacing continues, all of that. I do love a second chance romance though. Like if I had to pick out of all of the romance genres or like what is it called? Not tropes. If I had to choose amongst all of the tropes, I think I would really enjoy a second chance romance where it goes back and forth in timelines, and that's exactly what this one is like. Excited to read. I'm gonna take this one and I'm also gonna grab my iPad and we're gonna start a timer. We're gonna do 3 hours and let's get started. Okay, one thing I wanted to say about this book that I've been really enjoying is I feel like it's very realistic when you're talking about someone who comes from a family of immigrants. What I mean by that is there's an instance that's happening right now where the male main character is suggesting that he can essentially solve all of her problems, take care of her and her mom in a couple of different ways, and she gets pretty upset with him, and I think that she could have handled it in a different way than the way that she handles it in the book. However, she is in high school. But what I really like about it is that it really expresses in a really clear way what it feels like to have a parent who's an immigrant who could only do so much or like could only get you so far. I feel like it's a pretty big deal or like a big situation when a family is able to sort of take care of themselves, and especially a family of immigrants. I'm not saying that it's just for immigrants, but having a parent who's an immigrant and understanding how important it is to kind of feed off of what they were able to provide to you, even if it wasn't a lot. Even just like coming into another country where you have options and opportunities, it's like you have to seize all of those moments, and people who haven't experienced that don't understand it to the same degree. I'm sure that they still have a similar, you know, feeling or idea of it, but it's different when it feels like everything is riding on you succeeding, essentially. And the only other thing I really want to say is that I think this book does such a good job of reminding you what it it feels like to be in love in high school, or like to have that first high school romance, and it's very sweet, and I really love it for those parts too. But I like how dynamic the book is and all of the emotions that come with it, and it feels really raw and very real. Okay, we are about halfway through the time for today. I have an hour and 47 minutes. Yep, hour 47 minutes, so almost halfway through. I wanted to give you guys a couple of updates because I had some thoughts. So my first thought was just that I think that there's a couple of things that are very much like Booktuber related, which is interesting. So for example, she mentions a YA series, but she literally says it's a YA dystopian series. And I feel like that's very like Booktuber-y to say, and it's not really how most people talk about books. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but that's just how it felt. And the other thing that happened was she mentions that she reads something on her Kindle and then wants to go buy a physical copy of it. And again, that feels like a trend with book YouTubers or like book TikTokers. And so I just thought it was interesting. Like you can tell how much of the author herself bleeds into this book, which is interesting. Similar vibe as that actually. It's really hard for me. The main character Blair doesn't really feel like what I understand Haley to be based off of her videos, but Declan feels like how she perceives Ryan to be, which is her husband. And it's very interesting because he's a YouTuber too, so you can kind of like see a couple of the things that she describes feels like she's describing her own husband, which is really wholesome and really cute to read. And it feels like obviously when you're writing, you write from experience, and so it feels like she's really writing from experience. I mean, I've said in past vlogs before already that this feels like it's them, so it's just interesting to, I don't know, have that perspective as well. It makes me wonder like if I ever wrote something, or when I have written things before, I know that I use my own perspectives or like life examples or, you know, like people that I actually know. So it makes me wonder how that would translate into anything that I would eventually like edit and publish, because it really feels like we're getting a good chunk of who he is in this book, which is interesting. I do wish that we got a little bit more of their childhood together. I will say I'm now on chapter 16, and I think it was around chapter 12-ish, something around there. That's like the last chapter. The chapters that go in the past are not numbered, and the chapters that are in the present are numbered. So after chapter 11, you get your last past chapter, and I do feel like I wish that there was some more past chapters, and that more of the past chapters went further in the past, so we could understand more about the dynamic between these two characters from childhood and like understand why they even fell in love with each other to begin with, because it really feels like they fell in love because they've always sort of been obsessed with each other even as children, but I don't really know why. Like, why were they best friends? What did they get along about? Maybe it was something small because they were kids, but I think those are all of the things that make it feel that much more believable. And so I wish that we had that, but because they've always known each other, it makes that tension feel real. So on the flip side of that, like even though I wish that we had more details, the tension in this book and the way that she writes it and like how the characters interact, it's there. And I think that it's so well done. Like you can feel everything going on the way that she describes it. It's so well done. So I do really like the tension that she's created. I still wish that there were not as many similes in this book. I feel like any instance that she possibly can add a simile, it's happening. And I feel like it's just a couple too many. Like I think that they're really good and really paint the picture, but that's what makes the verbiage feel a little bit flowery. So I would say maybe fewer similes, like it's getting to a point where it's noticeable and she can't just like say one thing. She's making a comparison every single time. I'm officially at a point in what chapter did I say? 16. Chapter 16. I'm at the point where you can kind of tell that like the tension is starting to break and they're starting to communicate better. And I think that we're going to start to learn a little bit more about what happened between them and what's going on. But this is what I mean, like without a past chapter, I almost wish that I had a past chapter about how everything happened, or like, I don't know, like what happened in the past for them that caused all of this for them to not talk and everything. I wish we got that from the past instead of what I assume to be from the present, because there's no more past chapters. I'm curious to see how that all plays out. I do feel like so many people have talked either really highly or really low about this book simply because she's a YouTuber, and I feel like that's averaged out to like a 3.5 star rating generally on like Goodreads. I do feel like that's around what I would rate this so far. I feel like this book is really good for a debut novel. You can tell that she really took the time and really cared about every single detail about this book. I think that there's always going to be things that you can improve upon, but I think she did such a good job so far, and it's holding my attention. Like, I want to sit here and just read it, whereas I can't always say that about a book. So I think that it's working for me, and I think that if you're into second chance romance, friends to lovers, summer romance, a little beachside town, something to escape for the summer, I think this is really good so far. So let's read some more. I think we'll end up ending maybe at like 11ish. We'll see. I'm really hoping that I don't end up too tired. If I'm like exhausted, I might have to move my time to tomorrow, which would be unfortunate because then it's just gonna add time. But I don't want to not read all of my hours, if that makes sense. So I'll keep an eye on all of the time. I want to try to read as much as possible tonight though, so let's get back to it. All right, I officially made it to chapter 17, which I just checked in with you guys when I was on chapter 16, but I started this on like chapter 11 or something like that. Just like this session of reading. I have an hour and 18 minutes left of my reading, and unfortunately, I don't know that I'm gonna finish tonight, which is crazy because I feel like I literally just started this, and yet I'm already kind of failing, but I did almost read 2 hours, which I do feel really good about. It's already almost 10 p.m. and I wanna go to bed on time because I need to wake up for work tomorrow because I'm going back to the office tomorrow. And I also feel like I left off on a good spot. We're literally at a place where our characters are about to talk and acknowledge everything that they have missed in each other's lives and like potentially what's happened. So I'm excited because I feel like this is kind of the piece where something's gonna happen, or we're gonna like understand more of like what has happened, and then we'll get to like the wrap up and like what happens afterward, which it's a romance novel. I feel like more than likely they're gonna end up together, but I'm very excited for it. So I feel like we're leaving off in a good spot, and I'm not going to just not read this time. I'm just gonna add this to tomorrow's time, crossing my fingers that tomorrow I'll be able to read with ample time. But I know all of the other days of the week I will be able to make up for it because I read a lot more when I'm not driving / commuting. I also want to make sure I go to bed on time because tomorrow I'm actually gonna bring P to the office, which I'm so excited about. It's gonna be so cute. So I'm very, very, very excited. I am gonna pause this here. I'm gonna head to bed for now, and I'm gonna resume our reading tomorrow. I did want to say I have also been keeping track of the page numbers, and I read a total of 64 pages tonight, which I do feel like was pretty good for however much time I read. I feel like that's like my average. My average is probably like 40 pages an hour, and I'm considered a slower reader according to who, I don't know, but some of my friends read like 90 pages an hour. Anyway, 64 pages feels like I made a good decent dent, and I'm nearly 200 pages into this book now, so we're like in the home stretch, and I'm excited to learn what happens. We'll learn some more tomorrow, but for now I'm gonna head to bed, and I will see you then. Hello you guys, today is Wednesday, day 2 of our challenge. I, like you guys know, did not finish my reading yesterday, so I do still have my reading up, my little timer up on here. I think I'm going to reset this timer once this is up, so I'm gonna use up this entire timer. When it goes off, I'll set a new 3-hour timer. It's about 5:45 right now, and we're still reading Just Friends. So we are about 200 pages in now, and like I was saying yesterday, we're just at the point where things are starting to wrap up. We're gonna start to get a better understanding of what actually happened in their past, and I'm hoping that it'll kind of make sense. I'm also feeling so extremely tired today. It was a struggle for me to fall asleep last night, and that's happened to me on Monday, and it happened to me last night too. So I don't know what's going on, but it's been a struggle. And also we're in an insane heat wave, so I just changed out of my work clothes because the office that I go to has just such intense AC. So if you can hear our AC unit, I apologize, but it has to be on. It's so hot in here. And then when I got home, I just immediately had to change into just like a t-shirt because it's so hot. So anyway, let's get to some reading. I think Ryan will probably be home around like 6 or 6:30, something along those lines. So probably we'll pause just to like say hi to him, and then we're gonna get back into the reading. But I do feel confident that we can do it today because that would put us around 10, but I can also sleep in tomorrow because I don't have to go to the office. Let's go get cozy on the couch in front of the AC unit, and let's get to some reading. Hello you guys, good morning. It is day 3. Unfortunately, I did not make it to nearly as much reading as I thought I was going to. I have 2 hours and 2 minutes left, which means I read roughly an hour. Let's see. I read a total of 2 hours and 15 minutes yesterday, which I do feel is pretty good for a not work from home day, because commuting in itself takes up at least 2 hours of my day, if not more. Don't get me started. But I want to obviously do my full 3 hours plus makeup for this time today, which I do think that I can do. So I'm actually going to reset this to have the exact timing, because I think you can even do it down to the second. So let's see. Okay, so we're gonna do 5 hours, 2 minutes, and 47 seconds. That's gonna be our time for the entirety of today. I just set it. And I think I'm gonna start with Within Arm's Reach, just to give you numbers of how much I read yesterday, because I think that's important. I read 33 pages of Just Friends and 35 pages of Within Arm's Reach. So I read 68 pages. Did I do that math right? I do have some thoughts that I wanted to share with you guys. First, talking about Just Friends. I haven't gotten to the end yet. I have not finished this book, so there's a chance that maybe we learn a little bit more, but there's a character in here that asks for our main character's number. He kind of like never comes back around, and I kind of wish that there was a little bit more of this tension that like proved that Declan really was into her still, but I don't know, maybe that does come up, who knows. I can't envision that at this point with where we're at in the book that it's going to happen, and I do kind of wish that there was more of that. It feels kind of like there's a character that was like created for seemingly no reason. There's a couple of other things that I want to say about this book that I can't really say because I think that they would end up being spoilers, but another thing that I do really enjoy about this book is that at times it feels like it's more about our main character grieving her great aunt dying, and just like the idea of someone so important to you leaving your life, more so than it is about the romance. And in some ways I like that. I do think that in other ways it kind of makes the romance feel a little bit more shallow, but I really like the family dynamic that's created here. I think it's so strong. I think that not just her relationship with her great aunt, but her relationship with her mom, talking about being a child of an immigrant, like all of those things I think is so strong and so well done, and I really enjoy those parts. So I like them more than the romance, I'm not gonna lie, but maybe that's just like where my reading tastes have lied lately, because I feel like I've just been like straying away from a bit of the romance, but it just makes our character so much more three-dimensional, and it makes me feel like I actually know who she is instead of just who she is in this relationship. And then speaking about Within Arm's Reach a little bit, it's interesting, some of the characters, there's a bunch of scenes where some of the characters, especially as they're getting older, they start to like see things. One of our characters, Catherine, she talks about how her mom, like she never really got along with her mom because her mom was seeing things or would like talk to nothing. Then she starts to see things, which happens very early on in the book, like I think within the first couple of chapters. But it's interesting because they seem to call it some kind of like Irish curse or Irish, I don't remember what they call it, but it makes it sound like it's something that's like common within like the Irish culture, which I don't know that that's actually true. I don't know, maybe it's just like their family dynamic, who knows. But it is interesting because it paints this picture of like not really being able to understand which pieces are real or not real, and I think it's sort of what they're experiencing in their lives too. Like they can tell that something is almost like a vision or that it's not actually there, but then other elements, like maybe the TV will now be turned on and they can't tell who turned on the TV, different things like that. And it's not set in like a ghost mystery way, it's more like something is wrong with me, I don't know what's happening, I think maybe I'm just getting older. Like it just like really dives into what it is to be human, and I really enjoy that. This is the type of book that has been really up my alley lately, but I really think that you would have to be in the mood for it. It is so beautifully done. I think it just like takes people for what they should be and shows who they really are. So like, for example, a wife who's been married to somebody for X amount of years and is nearly 60, but is sort of starting to fall out of love with her husband and fall in love with someone else. Or a 30-year-old woman who decides that she wants to have a baby by herself and she doesn't want to be with a man when she has her baby and she wants to do it single. Like there's different things like that that take this like stereotypical, like this is how you're supposed to do it, this is what you're supposed to want, and kind of spins it on its head. And again, it just like shows all the nuances of being human, and I really like that too. So been loving this a lot. I think I'm gonna get back to it now. We have like 30 minutes before the workday starts, so I want to read as much as I possibly can before that. Let's get started. Okay, I made it to 4 hours and 21 minutes, which means, what was I starting at? 5 hours and 2 minutes or something like that? Hi. That means I basically read 45 minutes. So I don't know what number chapter I am in my book, but I'm on page 218. I have like a little chapter break because this was a longer chapter, so I decided to pause it here. I have a couple of things that I need to do, so I'm gonna get into that, but really enjoying, I think I'm really enjoying the second half of this book more than the first half. I feel like everything's kind of like coming to a head, and it's still the situation of like no plot, just vibes, but for some reason I'm really enjoying that. I think that like a year or two ago I would have hated this, and I don't know if it's just because it feels like for some reason these books are a little bit deeper into like who people are, but I really like it. In particular, for example, there's also this grandmother, Catherine. There's like a whole family tree here in the beginning of the book, and so you can see like the grandmother and grandfather, all of their kids, and then at the bottom their grandchildren. And the grandma, she is like the matriarch of this family. She at times experiences the want or need to be with her mom again, and like at the end of the day it just goes to show that even if you're a grandma, you are still a little girl. And the same thing happens with her granddaughter, where she's like, I just want my grandma. And it's really wholesome to have those moments and to have people be so vulnerable about it. So anyway, I'm really liking it. I'll probably get more into Just Friends in a bit, but I think this one has been taking my attention, so gonna read more of that around my lunch break, but I have to get into a little bit of work, so we will check in some more once we're on lunch, and hopefully we'll at least be able to read another hour at lunch, and then that will leave us to roughly the 3 hours for after work. Okay, I just moved out the ottoman back into this room. You can kind of see I've been kind of moving this in and out of this room because P usually sleeps on it in the bedroom, but I feel like it actually adds so much to this space and gives us more room to sit. It also was nice when Ryan and I are sitting on the couch together, or like whenever we do like family FaceTimes or whatever, it's nice to like have a little bit of space here and to have like, I don't know, just extra seating basically. I also just turned on the AC because it was getting so hot I couldn't handle it anymore. And I think I'm gonna get back into the reading. So we have 4 hours and 21 minutes left. We're gonna continue with Within Arm's Reach. I think I could probably finish this if I really put my mind to it today, if I actually get to my 4 hours and 21 minutes. If I started now and continued reading, it says that I would end around 7:30-ish, but I do have therapy today at 6, so I'm gonna have to take a break for about an hour. So that means I'll probably end up finishing around like 9:30 or 10, because realistically Ryan's gonna come home. I usually say hi to him. I'm not gonna just like ignore him when he gets in the house, and then therapy and all of that. So I'll probably end up getting back to reading around like 7:30-ish. So let's get a couple of hours into the reading right now, and then that way we can get ahead of it, and then we'll get to all of our reading for the day, and we can get back to just 3 hours a day, because I think more than that is a lot. I'm currently on page 218, so I have just under 100 pages left. Okay, quick update. We have made it to 3 hours and 17 minutes. So we are almost at that 3 hour mark, which means we've almost made up for the time from yesterday / the day before. I am super close. I think I probably have like 2-ish hours left of this book. Probably, I don't actually know. Honestly, I think initially this was kind of like a 3-ish star, and it's slowly bumping itself up, at least a 4-star for me right now. But I do have a therapy appointment, so I'm gonna pause on the reading, go to therapy, and then I'm going to go back into reading. So just wanted to update you guys for now. Let's get ready. I have to like get my stuff together for therapy, and then we'll get back to some reading. Okay, you guys, it is 10:30 and I have good news and bad news. The good news is I did read 3 hours today, almost exactly. I think I read like 3 hours and 1 minute, if I remember the exact timing correctly. So I ended up at 2 hours and 1 minute, 32 seconds left. The bad news is I didn't hit all 5 hours. So I still have 2 hours to make up. I think I will make up that time tomorrow. I do feel accomplished reading 3 hours, and what I will say about it that I've noticed, and I think what I used to be able to do to read so much more, is anytime I had downtime, even if it was like 5 minutes. I would read a piece of a chapter, or if I was waiting for my food to cook or had a lunch break or whatever, I was reading. And I feel like so much more often I just like go on social media, scroll for a little bit while I'm waiting for all these things. And I think that's part of what's not allowing me to read as much, or like making it so I'm not reading as much. So I do feel like doing all of that and like reading in all of my little spare moments. Normally it's difficult for me these days and I don't really know why, but I've been doing it, especially today, and I think that really helped. So I finally accomplished the 3 hours and I feel so good about it. And honestly, I think tomorrow will be a much easier day to get to the 5 hours. I do have some editing to do in the morning and I already am tired. So I think I'm going to head to bed now. I'm so close to finishing this book too. It's so good. Anyway, I'm gonna go to bed now so that I can wake up, edit, do some work, and then get into some reading. 3 hours accomplished. We still have another 2 hours to make up, but I know that we'll make up for it within the next couple of days at minimum. So I'm feeling good about where we're at. Hello you guys, I wanted to update you. I have not yet read today, which is crazy. I didn't end up telling you guys, but yesterday I ended up reading 117 pages of this book and I have just over 2 chapters left. So I think we're gonna finish this one and then we'll get back into Just Friends. I did successfully read the 3 hours yesterday, which felt really, really good. Honestly, I felt like I got so much reading in and I thought I was gonna get more reading in today, but honestly, I haven't had a chance to read yet. So we have 5 hours, 1 minute and 32 seconds on the clock. This is the leftover time from the last couple of days plus the 3 hours for today. I think we'll be able to do it no problem, especially since tomorrow is Saturday, so I don't have to go to bed at any specific time. I have no deadlines tonight. Like, I don't have any of that to think about, but I did not get a good night's sleep last night, so I'm hopeful that I'll just like be able to stay up. I think that's the thing that I'm most concerned about. But I'm gonna go take P on his nighttime walk and then I'm gonna start these. And after I'm done with these, I think there's a couple of books that I have on my radar. But yeah, I wanted to update you guys. So let's go walk P and then we will start our reading for today. Hello you guys, I just finished Within Arm's Reach and I think I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. I'm still kind of toying around and like thinking about my rating, so I will update you if I change it, but if I don't update you, that's because I'm leaving it at 4 stars. I've taken to reading the author's note in the back of the books lately, and this one was so interesting. She was talking about how, first of all, for whatever reason, this book went out of print, and so a bunch of people were messaging her and saying that they couldn't get their hands on it. So the publisher ended up republishing it as this copy, so that's why like on my Kindle it shows the original cover. This is like very 2004, and then this is the new cover, and I really like this cover a lot. But it also talks about how her first 2 novels were failed novels, which is so interesting because I feel like now, I mean, like this book is so beautiful, and then also she wrote Hello Beautiful, which not only is a widely recognized novel, but on top of it is like one of like the marketing images for the Kindle Colorsoft, and I feel like that's kind of a big deal. So it kind of showed me, or like proved to me, or reminded me, I guess, that you just have to keep putting your mind to things and like keep improving, and even if maybe you're not good at something right now, that doesn't mean that you can't get there. So honestly, it was really cool that she added that in. The book itself, there were parts where I felt like, because we were going between different characters' perspectives, as we were nearing the end, I had these realizations of like, oh my gosh, this is the last time that I'm gonna be in this person's perspective, and it was actually making me a little bit sad. I really, really liked this book a lot. Like, kind of nothing happened at all, but also it weirdly ended on a cliffhanger where like I can't tell if someone is alive or dead, which is so strange for a book where not a lot happened. Mostly you're just taken through the different perspectives of this family, and in particular like a branch of the family. So there's the grandmother and then all of her children. She had a lot of children, and then one child, her children. You get those perspectives, but you hear from all of these other people and you weirdly get a perspective for like 2 chapters of somebody else that like makes me question, like, is she actually part of the family? Because not even the aunts and uncles got a perspective. So that's interesting. There's just so many loose ends that were not tied up, but in like a positive way. Like, it didn't feel negative, like, oh, they forgot something. It was more just like, we literally just got a piece of these people's lives, and it kind of is just living with your family kind of idea. Like, that's basically what this book is just like the ins and outs of family and relationships and like breaking different stigmas and all of that. And I think if I keep thinking about this could go to a 5-star, which is crazy because it's been on my shelf for a little bit. And I don't know what it is about these types of books lately. I think I said it already, but a couple of years ago, I would have hated this. I would have felt like, oh, nothing's happening. It's not fast paced enough. Like, I don't understand, blah, blah, blah. But now I kind of like these like slice of life things because it's like, it's so real and it like really reminds you of like so many different aspects of your own life, which is very interesting. So anyway, I really, really liked it and I do recommend it, but I do want to just say that it is truly all vibes, no plot. So go into it knowing that. We read for just over an hour. So now we're at 3 hours and 57 minutes. So I'm gonna pick up Just Friends again. It's over there. I'm gonna sit with Pete. He's on the ottoman. We're gonna read that. I'm very excited. I wanna get through that one too. I need to write in my book journal about this book. I know I already miss my characters. Like, it's one of those books where I feel like I like really got to know these people and I miss them already. I'm excited to finish Just Friends. I think I have, if I remember correctly, just under 100 pages left. So I think that one should go fairly quickly. I think we can probably finish it today. So let's get to some more reading. Okay, you guys, I've moved to the bedroom. I am so tired. I don't remember if I mentioned it earlier, but last night I got like no sleep at all and I'm exhausted. I think I need to go to bed. I was so close to hitting 3 hours. I have like 30 minutes until I hit 3 hours, but I'm so exhausted. So I think because tomorrow is Saturday, I'll have more time to read tomorrow. So unfortunately, I'm carrying over the time again. I do think I'm still reading more than I normally do. But reading 3 hours a day is a lot harder than it seems because you think that you're reading a lot, but you're actually not. So I do have some thoughts for you guys, but I think I'm gonna save them for the morning because right now I feel honestly like delirious. I have like 40 pages left of this book and I really could finish it, but I feel like as I'm reading, I feel my eyes glossing over and I'm like not having it. So I think it'll be better if I just go to bed, wake up refreshed, and then we can read tomorrow. And I will get back on track. I will end up reading the number of hours that 3 hours a day would be. But I think day one, just like not doing it was hard. It made the whole challenge hard. That's okay. We're gonna get back to it. I'm gonna get our bed set up and stuff. We have like a cooling pad and things like that because it's still really warm. I don't know. Oh, it's 72 right now. That's not terrible, but for 10 p.m. it's like pretty warm. It is supposed to get into like the 60s tonight, so I'm really hoping that it's a much cooler night than last night. Last night was rough. That is the update. I have more thoughts on the books and things like that, but I think I'm just gonna update you guys in the morning. Hello, you guys. I just wanted to come to you with my thoughts on Just Friends. I just finished it and I think I'm going to give it 3 stars, which is kind of what I was feeling throughout the entirety of the book. Like, I think that it was pretty good, but it wasn't my favorite 5-star book ever. Although I will say that generally these days, I feel like that's the case with a lot of romance novels. So it's not necessarily just Friends. I just feel like a lot of romance novels kind of follow a similar pattern to one another. So now that I've read enough, it's hard to give one 5 stars. To quickly talk about my time, I started the day with 5 hours and 51 minutes and we're now at 4 hours and 51 minutes. So we're gonna knock it out today. Tomorrow I'm a little concerned, I'm not gonna lie, because we have an event to go to from like 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. kind of idea. And I don't know how I'm gonna do 3 hours of reading after that, but we'll figure it out. So that's okay. But to give you the thoughts on the book. So I'm gonna go through some of the things that I didn't really like and then I'll go through the things that I did like. And I wrote down a few notes here just to keep it top of of mind while I was reading. I will say I think that they forgave each other very quickly before they really talked about things. So it felt like the two main characters forgave each other, and then like a couple of scenes later started to talk more about things as if they hadn't forgiven each other yet. And I think they needed to talk through more before they could actually forgive each other. So by the end of the book, I do feel like they were truly on the same page and all of that. But the initial like forgiving felt like, I don't know, it didn't feel quite right. Also, the reason that they stopped talking feels a little weird. It just feels like a really big miscommunication, and if they were actually that close, I can see why they felt so hurt. But at the same time, I think that either one of them could have continued to try. Like, we're in the era of cell phones and FaceTime and all of that, so like they could have called each other, FaceTimed each other, whatever, to like get back in contact with each other. I also wanted to confirm, I think I mentioned it before, but the guy who asks for Blair's number just like never shows up again in the book. At some point Declan says something like, oh, he's not worth your time, but I think that would have been a really fun plot point if like she tried to go out on a date and then was like just maybe comparing everybody to Declan or something like that. But at this point in her life, it feels like she's only ever known Declan and she only ever will know Declan. And so, not saying that that's bad by any means, but the person was right there and the plot point was right there, and I feel like we just didn't go down that route. I do feel like the writing style was interesting. Like, it definitely was Emily Henry-esque or like Abby Jimenez-esque, but just like a little bit clunky. So I don't think that it was necessarily bad. It was just harder for me to read, and I know a lot of people have said this online as well. I do think that as she continues to write, she'll sort of hone in on her own voice, and for a first time writer, I think that this is fantastic. I know she's taken a couple years to do it, so honestly I think that like it was fine. I just don't think that it was the best, and I think she can continue to hone in on the craft and not make it so clunky in the future. Just generally too, like there's a lot of usage of British words which makes no sense. Like at one point Blair even makes fun of Declan for using British words, but she does it too. Like she says bloody, like, oh, and you're bloody, blah blah blah, and at one point they say snogging instead of kissing, and it's just, I don't know, it's sort of random and weird, and I can't tell if it's because Haley sometimes does that as a joke or I don't know, something else, but it just felt really out of place. And just generally within the romance, I felt like the characters were missing something. Like there's some connection that I felt missing between the two people. And I think maybe that's partially that this is sort of geared toward more of a YA no spice type book. So it just didn't feel like there was that connection. But I think even with a YA no spice book, you can still have that connection. So something just felt like it was missing for me. Now onto the things that I like, because I don't want to just like sit here and talk about the book as if it was terrible. I think a lot of people on Goodreads have been giving it either like 1 or 2 stars or 5 stars. And I haven't really been seeing a lot of like 3-star, 4-star type ratings, which is interesting to me because I do feel like this one was a solid 3-star. Like I don't think that it was the best book ever, and I don't think it was the worst book ever. I think a lot of people are talking about how Haley has a platform and so it's so unfair and all of this stuff. But honestly, I think that like she truly wrote this book herself. It's not like she had a ghostwriter. It's not like it's the worst book ever. I don't know. I feel like you see examples of, and I mentioned this in another vlog, but you see examples of like Kylie and Kendall Jenner having a ghostwriter and writing this like fictional series, or Zoella when she wrote her book. And I think that there are rumors that that was ghostwritten, or at least partially ghostwritten. I'm not 100% sure, but I also have heard that that one was like a terrible book. So I don't know. I just feel like the hate that this book is getting is just not really deserved. I feel like some of Emily Henry's first books were probably around the same as what Haley's first book is like. So I don't know if you guys have ever read Emily Henry's backlist, but before all of her romance novels, she wrote other books, and I've tried reading one and I hated it. So I don't know, I just feel like we should try to take the fact that she's a YouTuber out of it. I know that it just means she has more privileges and more access to things like being published instead of having to go through the self-publishing phase or having to try to sell her novel to all of these people. But like, it is what it is, and at least she actually wrote the book herself, you know, like really spent time and did it like any other author would. So into the things that I did like. I really loved the grief and the family dynamic. I think she did such a good job at painting a picture of what it's like to be a first generation from an immigrant family. I think the images of grief that she throws into the book, I mean, this book was primarily about the grief over the romance almost. And I think that it was just so well done. I really, really loved that. I think that both Declan and Blair grow a lot in this book, and I loved seeing that growth. I think we got to witness a lot of it, and I really, really enjoyed that a lot. Blair really questions herself at a point and becomes more self-aware and is trying to decide, like, am I being fair to Declan by trying to enter a relationship while I'm grieving, and having all of these internal questions that I think a lot of people just like aren't self-aware enough to think about. And I really liked, again, going back to the growth that we saw, I really liked that a lot. And I liked that they were building up their relationship. I think a lot of times in romance novels, there's only so much space. Generally, a romance novel will be like 300, 350 or so pages, and this one was right in the middle there at 315 or something along those lines. And a lot of times with romance novels, people will just like get together and immediately move in together for whatever reason. I really enjoyed that they had close proximity, but they didn't just immediately like jump into moving into each other's houses. I don't know. For me, I really enjoyed that. I personally don't love like super spicy books. I think that we could have had a little bit more tension or intimacy between our characters, but I don't think it needed to be full spice. So overall, I really did enjoy this book. I feel like this one is a solid 3-star. I think this is an amazing first like debut novel, and I think she did a really good job on it. It's clear that she cares so deeply about this book and she put everything into this. The characters do feel like her and Ryan from like what we can perceive from being online, but I don't know. I think that, again, I've said before, I think sometimes, especially your first novels, you kind of have to write from what you know, and I think that she did a really good job. So those are my thoughts. I think solid 3-star. I would recommend it if you're looking for like a little summery beach read. Like, it's kind of the perfect read for that. Now I'm trying to decide what my next book is going to be that I want to read. I have promised Ryan that I was going to pick up a book because he's been wanting me to read it for a while, and it's very, very short, and I also kind of want to read Fearful, so I think I'm gonna toggle between the two. I want to look at the book that he gave me. I think it's like 90 pages. It's like pretty short, and then I think we'll pick up Fearful. Or I was also thinking of like Dear Debbie by Frida McFadden. I think that's a new one. Frida McFadden books I feel like lately have not been my favorite, but it always is fast-paced and keeps my attention. So I don't know how Frida McFadden, however you say her name, I don't know how she writes so many books, because I feel like she writes like 2 or 3 a year. And I was seeing some conspiracy theory online that she is actually like just a name, and that there's like a bunch of kind of like the Nancy Drew idea where like there's just actually a bunch of writers who write under the name Frida McFadden. I don't think that that's actually true, but it's just such a funny concept because she writes so many books. Like, I don't understand it. But Dear Debbie did get a 4.01 star average on Goodreads. I know a couple of my friends read it, and let's see, 2 4-stars and a 5-star. Seems interesting. I have been needing to read Fearful though, so I'm gonna kind of play around with what books I read. I wanna look a couple of them up, look up the ratings and all of that, and I will start to read again shortly. It's almost 10 a.m. so we have a good solid day ahead of us full of reading, which is really nice. Okay, you guys, I just finished The Old Man and the Sea. I'm putting the book jacket back on. This ended up being, let's see, it was 93 pages long, but it didn't actually start on page 1. It starts on page 13. So 80 pages? That means that today so far I've read 129 pages, which I think is the most amount of pages I've read so far in this little mini reading challenge, just quickly looking at everything. Just to give you guys updates on timing, I started the day with 5 hours and 51 minutes, and right now I'm at 2 hours and 27 minutes, which means I've read 3 hours and 24 minutes. So I've officially hit my 3 hours, but to make up for my time for the last couple of days, I would say mostly what happened was day 1 is when I failed, and then that's trickled on into the last few days. But I basically have 2 hours and 27 minutes to catch up on that I need to do. It says right now that that would put me to 9:40 p.m. So I think I can probably do it, but I want to give you guys a recap on this book first. So basically it's about this man who hasn't caught a fish he's a fisherman, and he hasn't caught a fish in 84 days. And I think people are like kind of making fun of him, and he he ends up catching this like huge fish. And it's sort of his journey throughout this whole process of like first being determined to even catch the fish, his process in catching the fish, because that in itself is just like a journey, and then trying to get back to the shore and what happens with the fish. It's also very interesting because he is very alone in this story. Like there's a boy who he's friends with, but the boy is not allowed to fish with him right now because his dad says that he needs to go fish with fishermen who actually catch fish. And so he's on this journey alone, and it's so interesting because he talks to himself, but it's written in such an interesting way where his internal monologue is sort of negative, and then he literally speaks out the positive. So he'll literally be talking to himself where it will just, I don't know, it's very clear he's talking to himself. It's never him thinking that he's talking to anybody else, but just the way that it's written is so interesting, and I really enjoyed that part of it. The other thing that I want to say is this book is not really plot or vibes. It's like somewhere in the middle, which is so interesting. I think the second half of it was a good story, like good plot points, and made me actually excited to read it. I think the setup was a little slow, but I think that that's just hard with an 80-page story. And some of the pages, by the way, are like full pictures like that. So I don't even know if that you could count this as a full 80-page novel. So with that, it's sort of hard because that buildup is so necessary, or like the backstory is so necessary, but also it's hard to do that with such a short story. So overall, I really liked it. I think it was a very interesting book. I think this is the first time that I've ever read anything by Hemingway. It was kind of fun because the character talks a lot about baseball, and it was getting me thinking about like, I don't know, just random facts. And I was looking things up and was realizing that baseball was around before cars were like around in the US, which is so interesting. And also because this is by Hemingway and this is set in Cuba, and Hemingway obviously like had a house in Cuba and spent a lot of time in Cuba, it was kind of like making me nostalgic, or like making me think back on my trip to Cuba that I took in 2017, which was very interesting. I even went to the bar that he frequented, and like there's a statue of him and everything. So it was really fun to, I don't know, just sort of see the Cuban adventure, or like just more about Cuba and like Havana in general in this story. So that was very fun, and again made me very nostalgic. So that was that book. I've been meaning to read that because Ryan's been wanting me to, so I'm going to update him right now. But I think I'm going to pick up Fearful because it's a novella, and I think I have limited time from the library to read it. So I don't remember like who these characters are. It starts off with a character named Mara. I don't remember who that is, so I'm gonna look that up really fast, and then I think I'm going to start this book and finish my last 2.5-ish hours of this reading. If I finish all of the reading today, that means that I will have finished almost 6 hours of reading today, which is a crazy thought. So I'm gonna get to it, and I'm gonna first go update Ryan on this book, and then I'm gonna get to reading, and I'll continue to update you guys along the way. Hello you guys. I have been listening to my audiobook this morning. I cannot remember exactly what I left off at in terms of time yesterday, but I basically got to a point just now. It's 10 a.m. and I just hit the 3-hour mark. So essentially I have 3 hours, like I'm back at square one. Like now we have 3 hours to read, which means I probably read like 2.5 hours at least today. I feel like no matter what, like from day 2 onward, I've been actually hitting my 3 hours every single day. And day 1 was just like, it shifted everything for me. But wanted to update you guys on Fearful because that's what I've been reading. I'm on chapter 13, which means I am 44% of the way through. I've been doing a lot of reading on the audiobook this morning because we have an event that we're going to today, and I needed to like do my workout, get ready, put some laundry away, like all of those like little chores, and I wanted to continue to read. So anyway, about 40, on the Kindle it says 46, on the phone it says 44, so almost 50% of the way through the book. So far, I actually really enjoy it. I feel like Lauren Roberts, like generally, Powerless, I really liked. What was the second one? It was Powerless, Powerful. What is the second book called? Was it Reckless? Reckless. Okay, Reckless. I feel like could have been better. And then Fearless, I liked, but just nothing beat the feeling of Powerless. Like Powerless was the best in this whole trilogy. And I really enjoyed Powerful. I feel like generally a novella is harder for me to really attach myself to because for whatever reason, since there's just less time in the book, like a novella is what, like 200 or so pages, maybe less. It's hard for me to just like really, like by the time you get the setup, the book is basically ending. So it's hard. And I think that because we had such a great picture painted, and like the way that the powerful novella was produced essentially, or like the timeline that it was in, and the fact that it was sort of like this second POV of everything that we already know. I think it was just like so well executed, and it's probably one of my favorite novellas I've ever read. I feel like I can't really usually rate a novella 5 stars because it's so hard to like, again, get emotion out of such a short story, but somehow she was able to do that. And I'm kind of feeling the same about Fearful. This one follows Kit as well as Mara, who is death essentially, and in the Mara chapters she's actually intrigued by 2 other people. She's following Lenny and Blair in their little situation that's going on. Like, Lenny is supposed to be taking care of Blair, but Blair feels like she doesn't need him to be watching out for her because she's more powerful than he is, and she feels sort of ashamed that she needs someone to guard her from Peyton because Peyton's an ordinary. And Kit, on the other hand, like, we know at this point what's been going on with Kit and everything within that side of things, and I'm not going to get into it because if you haven't read the series or you're currently reading it, I don't want to spoil anything. But he also gets the chance to interact with Mara, and it's very interesting to see. And same with, like, at one point another character notices Mara for a second when she's just like not used to being noticed, and so it kind of like throws her off for a little bit. And there's just so much happening in this novella that I'm really, it's like I'm fully intrigued. I'm in the world. I'm really enjoying it. So I was surprised because I feel like I've been putting this one off for so long because I was like, oh, it's just another novella. I'm not really that interested in hearing Kit's side of things, but it's not just like hearing Kit's side of the story. It's like, it's just totally different. So I really like it a lot. I think I'm gonna continue reading. Again, we're gonna start the 3-hour timer, and I'm starting a fresh timer now. Like, this is actually very exciting to have just a full-on 3-hour timer. Let's get started. I'm gonna finish as much as I can of this book. We're gonna be heading out in like just under an hour for our event, and then when we come back, I'll try to read the rest. So let's read, let's see how this goes. And honestly, I think, hopefully, crossing my fingers, I'll be able to finish this book today because I probably have like 2 hours of the book left to listen to. Anyway, let's get to listening. Hello you guys, happy Monday. Today is the last day of our 3 hours per day reading challenge. Yesterday was hard. I did actually read a full 3 hours. However, I ended up not reading the entirety of the time that I had left on my timer from previous days. So we have a good amount of reading to do today, but it's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I did have an all-day event yesterday, so literally from like 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. I was busy, and so I didn't get to do as much reading as I thought I was going to, but I only have 4 hours and 24 minutes, and I feel like I can probably do that. Like, that's easy peasy. I've been reading Fearful right now, and I'm about 80, just past 80% of the way through the book. I feel like I'm going to finish it within the next like hour or so because I've been listening to it mostly as an audiobook, and I think that was honestly a really good choice for this book. Something about starting it, I wasn't like, leaving a fantasy world is hard to just like dump back into, and so the audiobook fully immersed me into it in a way that I really enjoyed. So I'm excited to continue reading it as an audiobook. I told you guys before already, but I'm really enjoying the story. I really like the perspective that I'm getting, and overall I think that it's just been really fun to read. And just, I thought initially going into having Kit's perspective, I wasn't going to be in love with that, but I'm so happy with where we're at. So been really enjoying it, and I'm excited to continue reading today. I think, again, I'm gonna finish that, and then I'm trying to decide what to read next. I kind of want to read The Correspondent. I've heard really good things about it, and I think that would be a really easy book to just like pick up and kind of binge because I've heard it's super bingeable. It kind of reminds me of The Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid, where it's like all letters that we're reading. So I think that might be the one, but we'll see. So that's the update for now. I have a couple of meetings to go into, and then after that is when I will start my reading back up. So I'll keep you guys posted either way, and I'm excited to finish our challenge strong. I think that we're going to be able to finally accomplish all of the hours. And again, honestly, I've said this a couple of times, but from day like 2 or 3 onward, I have read 3 hours a day. It's more just this makeup time that I've been trying to get through. So I'm excited to finally get through that too. Hello you guys, I wanted to update you guys on Fearful and what I'm planning to read next. So I finished Fearful, and I'm giving it 5 stars, but I think mostly because I really liked what they did with the novella, if that makes sense. Like, it's not necessarily that, well, I really liked the concept of the whole book, but also I just find it impressive that like what they were able to do with the novella in such a short amount of time was accomplished. I feel like 9 times out of 10 a novella can't, like, it can only be so good because it has so little time to be as good as it possibly can be. But because the story parallels so well to what the original story is in Fearless, and still being able to have a spin on it, I just feel like it deserves a 5-star. Like, I thought that it was such a good novella. I somehow went from really not liking Kit to really loving him and feeling so badly for him and understanding everything that he went through and his whole character arc. And I think that in itself is hard to accomplish at all within a story, let alone within 200 pages. So I think that it was so well done. The relationships in the book were so good. I really liked it a lot. I think that there was a couple of different relationships that you got to see, and I feel like each and every one of them was so good. And then finally, I think specifically I really enjoyed the voice actors in the audiobook. There's 2 different voice actors, one for the Kit chapters, one for the Mara chapters, and I really liked them a lot too. I think there's a couple of things that I can't tell if it's just like me not remembering the story or if there are actual plot holes, but I feel like I didn't get too hung up on them because I did read the actual trilogy a little while ago, and it's been enough time that I don't recall if it's, again, just me misremembering or me not remembering something, or if it's an actual plot hole. But if it was a plot hole, I feel like it's like such tiny things that don't actually matter, so I think it was fine. More than anything, I think that it deserves a 5-star for me because it felt so memorable in the way that death was portrayed and the relationships that were built within this book in particular. I don't know, I just again feel like if you can get me to hate a character so deeply and then in 200 pages get me to love them again within that time, which is like actually a little bit of time, to get me to love that character again and like kind of forgive everything else, you have to do a lot. I really liked it a lot. Gave it 5 stars. I think the next book that I'm going to go for is The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. I read the first like prologue little section that there was, and I'm about to get into the meat of the story, and I'm very excited. All I really know is that it's this woman who was practicing law and she really likes to write letters. And I really liked the evidence of the affair, so I'm hoping it's something like that where like we learn a bunch of different things from the letters. But I just keep seeing it online and I keep seeing that everyone's just obsessed with it. It's bingeable, all of that kind of stuff. I feel like more stories should be written in letter format because it's just so easy to read and is so exciting, and you learn so much because like this is the type of way that we as humans communicate with one another, is like letters, emails, text messages, like written correspondence where we are detailing information from our perspectives rather than these like third person omniscient stories where like we are now all knowing and our character maybe doesn't know information that we ourselves know. And so I feel like it's just such a cool concept to have this story written the way that it is. So I'm very excited to read it, and I've heard great things from social media, but I've also heard great things from my friends in real life who have read this book, so I'm excited about it. So I'm gonna continue reading. I have my 3 hours to read tonight because I ended up going on a walk with Ryan's mom. She came over today after work and we walked for an hour and a half, and then we chatted for another half an hour, so it's a little late. And I didn't think that I would be here this late and have 3.5 hours left to read, but we're gonna get through it and I'm excited. Tomorrow I'm working from home, which normally on Tuesdays I would go into the office, but because I'm working from home, I can stay up a little bit later. So we're gonna try to finish our 3.5 hours and get through as much of the correspondence as we can, and I will update you along the way. Hello you guys, I wanted to update you because I officially finished my 3 hours of reading. I feel like, first of all, before I get started, I just want to say, in case you hear the dishwasher, I apologize for the noise, but we did run the dishwasher, so just wanted to give that heads up. But a couple of things about just the reading experience, and then I'll get into the correspondent in a little bit. I actually went just over my 3 hours because I wanted to finish the letter that I was currently reading in this. Mostly for this reading challenge, I did feel like day one, I kind of started off on the wrong foot, and so then going into the following days, it was hard because I was sort of always trying to catch up. But I do think that 3 hours is a solid amount of time for me to try to read each day. I feel like between this new app that I got that helps me stay off my phone, which is sort of like a brick app, it's called Focus. I feel like between that and having the goal of I need to read this amount of time and just like realizing how much time you actually have read in comparison to how much time you think you've read has been super helpful. So even just like setting a timer to be like, I want to do any task. It doesn't have to be reading, just like I want to sit down and do computer work for X amount of time. I want to read for a certain amount of time. I want to go hang out with P for a certain amount of time. It sounds so silly to do that as timers, but I feel like sometimes it helps because otherwise it's really hard to know exactly how much time you've spent doing something, and our brains sometimes sort of like auto add how much time you've actually spent when that's not accurate. Does that make sense? Like maybe I'll think that I've read for 3 hours, but I've really read for like an hour and a half, but I've also gotten distracted with other things. So it's helpful to have the timer just to like keep yourself honest, essentially. My thoughts on this book so far, it is so good. I feel like it deserves the hype. At first, it took me a sec to get into because I was trying to understand like who the character is, who she's even talking to. There's so many different names because she does so much letter writing that you're trying to keep everything straight. But if you just keep reading, then it becomes really obvious who she's talking to, what the dynamics of everybody are, and start to understand more about like how her mind works. There was a part in this book relating to her ex-husband, and I won't get into the details of it, but I literally had to text my friend and be like, I was near tears about that particular moment because it was just so sad. So far I've really enjoyed it. I feel like it's not as like immediately drama filled as Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid, but I really enjoy it, and I think learning about this woman's life through her letters is just so special, especially because again, that is how in general we do learn about people's lives, is like through their experiences or what they're telling us, what information they're willing to give back to us. But there's also like interesting relationships in here, like with customer service representatives or like anyone that she can write a letter to, she will, and it's very interesting. So been really liking it so far. I have about 2.5 hours left of the book, so I think within the next like day or two I should be able to finish this. But for now, that is all I have for this video. So thank you guys so much for being here and watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this little reading challenge and all of the books that we got to explore within this reading challenge. I do feel like I've read more during this challenge than I have in a really long time, and that's another reason why I'm grateful for this. So thank you guys again for being here and watching. If there's ever anything that you want me to read on this channel or want me to do on this channel, feel free to leave it in the comments below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.